Hi, this is Kelvin again from the Secretariat team. Looks like we are still missing Rebecca and BJ. We're at the top of the hour show. Shall we still begin, or would you like to give it a couple more minutes?
Kelvin, I would like to start the session as we have all the speakers here and also the participant who have just joined now. And in the meantime, we got the information that Mr. Vijay Roy is joining. So by the moment we have some round of questions, we can see Mr. Vijay Roy who will be joining the session. So I'd like to start the session ahead.
Okay, let's go for it.
Recording in progress.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay, welcome all the participants and distinguished speakers and guests and all who have contributed, and we have just joined APrIGF 2021 session, and this session is going to be on the MANRS and MANRS for policymakers to improve global routing security. So we're in the 12th Asia Pacific Regional Internet Governance Forum. So it is on hybrid mode due to COVID-19, and it's based in Kathmandu. So we're here from Kathmandu actually, and we have our distinguished speaker, whose name can be seen from the screen actually. We have Mr. Ramakrishna Pariyar, who represents Internet Society, and he is also an ambassador from MANRS in terms of policy. We have Ms. Rebecca Emmanuel, who is representing Kuzassim Generation, Mr. Vijay Roy, who is from regulatory body of Nepal, which is Nepal Telecommunication Authority, and in place of Mr. Anurag Bhatia, Mr. Israel Roses has joined. He is a senior regional development manager in Internet Society. So with this short and brief introduction, what you can guess and what you can measure is they have been extensively working in the field of the technology, field of manners, and in terms of network and different stakes. Actually, by stake we mean different organization whose contribution is a lot, and their experiences and their expertise can be something of value to APrIGF and audience here, so that they can learn about how MANRS can be useful for the policymakers in terms of improving the global routing security. I'm a moderator, Subhash Kakami, myself. I'm the CEO of Internet Service Provider Association in Nepal, which is a consortium for ISPs and NSPs in Nepal. So without further delay, I'd like to move to the next part of this session, which will be the panel discussion itself. So I can see Mr. Ramakrishna Pariyar here on the screen. So shall we begin then, Mr. Ram?
Sure.
Okay. We've been listening about MANRS, and at the present context, cybersecurity has been challenging, not in terms of local, not in terms of regional, but in terms of global actually. So we know that one of the key agenda and one of the key principles for IGF is trust itself, and trust is very important at the present context of actually maintaining a security. And by security, we know, everybody know that cybersecurity is a key challenging issue. And when we drill down to the different aspects, we can see a network being compromised, a network being actually captured by different attackers. And it has been crucially important these days to secure the network, and routing security is one of the key challenging issues. How have you seen as an ambassador in MANRS and as a co-worker in ISPs as well? How have you seen this, and what is the pattern actually? Would you like to relate that information to our audiences?
Okay, thank you, Subhash sir, for this the questions. Actually, thank you for this one. Okay, and today the internet play an essential role in the majority of the society around the world, right? From banking to education, health to logistics, just about every sectors relies on the internet-based applications and services to functions. Okay, actually, due to the pandemic, all these peoples are working from home, and the internet is a lifeline for everyone. Okay, that means our increased dependency on the digital technology brings with its growing concern around the internet security. While there are many dimensions to internet security, and securing the key building block of the internet infrastructure is a critical. Okay, the internet's routing systems enables data to flow from one point to another, ensuring that this data flow correctly and to its intended recipient is the foundation of the internet society. Okay, thousands of internet routing incidents occurs everywhere every year, leading to economic and the social harm by making key service unreachable, disrupting e-commerce business, and the etc., allowing malicious actor to spy on users and with it the potential to compromise system. Okay. While existing security measures can help address many of these routing incidents, the solutions they provide are often limited. The interconnected nature of the network means that many solutions only works when others network make the same improvement. We need a collective actions to make a real change. It support to the large internet security agenda. Yes, it encourages for the policy makers to work with the network and the infrastructure operators, critical infrastructures, protections, agency, and standards bodies, among others, to improve global routing security while also preserving vital aspect of the system that have allowed the internet to be open and the universe. As you know that there are 70,000 AS number exist in the global internet, right? And out of 70,000, 700 ASN are already in the concrete plan with the MANRS members, right? These days, the tendency is changed. The people are feeling like we need a security. We need to define the some set of the, standard rules so that will be easy to adapt and that will be easy to to business as well.
Okay, I can have a lot of learning from you. I believe audiences have also got an insight of this, how the trust is a factor and how MANRS is contributing to that. And certainly coming to the policy, because we are now discussing about policies for the organization, policy for the governments, and policy for different enterprises. And actually, when you come to the policy making process of MANRS, what is the regional or global challenges, and at the same time, how that can be overcome? What is your experience in terms of that?
Okay, thank you for the another questions, Subhas. Actually, like I'm previously mentioned, like there are so many incidents happen in the internet. Some of the hijack, some routing leak. If you see some data, like in 2020, there were around 3,873 major network incidents that involved BGP. It's called Border Gateway Protocols. That protocol basically used to exchange the routing information between one organizations or one AS number to another AS numbers, right? That related attack of these 64% of were hijack and the rest was route leak, right? In the years 2029, there were around 4,232 major network incidents that involved BGP, of which 3.8% of all network were affected by the routing incident, and the 2% of all network were responsible for 4,232 routing security incident. These incidents can create a serious strain on infrastructure, result in drop traffic, right? Allowing for unauthorized inspection of traffic be used to perform like DOS, denial of service attack, or distributed denial of service attack. That means in the July 2020, there were 2 significant routing incidents in the global BGP routing system, impacting more than 1,500 networks worldwide. This highlighted the need for network operators to implement good routing security practice. That means we need to make internet more hygiene. This incident impacted measures like North America network providers, including TWC, Rogers, Charters, among others. The only effective way to address routing security threat is through global collective actions, as no one organization or group can do it alone. Government and the policymaker can play a key role in facilitating such collective actions. Yes, we know that most of the service provider and most of the telcos people have a technically sound, but they are missing very basic part. That's why this internet society initiate the MANRS mutually agreed norms for routing security in 2014, right? Due to that initiative, it helped for the operators, it helped to the society to clean the network.
Yeah, definitely. We can know from your answer that the policymakers ought to know about MANRS and actually got into the ecosystem actually in terms of knowing MANRS and adopting the practices and policies. So I have another question from my audience, which we collected through a link. And I'll be putting those questions because that definitely concerned with you. So that's the reason why I'm putting this question. But before that, we'll request our audience to put their question in the chat box if you are interested to raise the question, and you can do that simply by typing your question at the chat box. So I'll be definitely forwarding to the relevant speakers. So request with this request, I just move to Mr. Ramkrishnan again. So we got a question from an audience to a web link. However, having said that, don't get me wrong to ask if the audience question, why MANRS? And despite of many routing security best practices, there are different protocols and their security mechanisms, standard-based operating procedures. There are different best practices. So why MANRS? What is the importance behind for the organization to adopt MANRS in their policies actually?
Yeah, thank you, Subhash sir, for that. Actually, in the previous part, I am also saying why MANRS for the operators and the policy makers. I am saying there are so many incidents happen in the global internet. I also share some statistics for the 2020 and the 2019. Okay, in the years 2020, there are around like 3,873 major network incidents that involve in the border gateway protocol, BGP related attack. Of these, 64% of were hijack and the rest were the route leak. And likewise, in the 2019, there were 4,232 major network incidents that involved like border gateway protocol, of which 3.8% of all network were affected by a routing incident, right? 2% of all network were responsible for the like 4,232 routing security incident. These incidents can create a serious issue in the infrastructures. That will create a problem in the route hygiene, right? The result in the traffic drop, allow for unauthorized inspection of traffic, and that might be create a DOS or DDoS attack as well, right? That's why the government and the policymakers can play a key role in facilitating such collective actions, right? What are their collective actions? Means there are actually the internet society define a concrete action for network operators to implement to greatly improve internet security and the reliability. That is like filtering, defining a clear routing policy, and implementing a system to ensure that announcements to adjacent network are correct. Likewise, in the anti-spoofing, enabling source address validations, SAV, and implementing anti-spoofing to prevent packet with incorrect source IP address from entering and leaving the network. So likewise, another term is coordinations, is maintaining globally accessible, up-to-date contract informations to assist with instant response and the global validations, publishing data that enable other stakeholders to validate routing informations on a global scale. The first two, filtering and IP source validation, address the root cause of common routing incident. The second two, coordination and global validations, help limit the impact of incident and decrease the likelihood of future incident. Okay, that's why the MANRS, mutually agree norms for routing security actions, define outcome rather than specific method. This allow implementations to change with technology and help establish mutually agreed norms for routing security actions as best practice. Alongside routing incident, MANRS seek to address ecosystem challenges in a global routing system.
Okay, so you define about the different incidences, IR incident response policies. You also talked about different aspects like BGP and how the internet ecosystem works and how MANRS can be best implemented for the policymaker. That definitely might give our audiences actually an insight why they have to choose MANRS in terms of policy and in terms of policy adoption and sort of things. I'll also quickly get back to you, having some brief question and answers from other speakers. And you definitely highlighted different kind of policy making procedures. And one of the things that I can note down at real time is that you just talked about an internet ecosystem, which is a pretty much interesting one. So let's quickly move to Mr. Israel Roses for asking about internet ecosystem, what is the challenges and things. And in the meantime, I'll also let you know that our speaker, distinguished speaker, Mr. Bijay Kumar Roy, has joined this session. Actually, he's a regulator from Nepal Telecommunication Authority, which is a telecommunication authority in Nepal, a government body actually. So we'll now move to Mr. Israel Roses. So Mr. Israel Roses, so we just heard that from Mr. Ramakrishna Puriya that internet ecosystem is not much secure, and we can see from the connections we have is that you have been working in IX, NOCs, and security operations centers, and you have got a lot of experiences, and you are also representing a regional level. So what kind of threats and incidents are available? What kinds of threats and incidents are seen in the regional at the global level? And when you talk about the internet ecosystem as a whole, there are IX, internet exchange point, like ISPs, and from ISP, end users are connected. And at the same time, global traffic is there, which is now a challenge, actually a challenge to maintain a trust. And at the same time, maintaining these key challenges and adopting them into the policy, say security policy of an organization or any kind of policies of an organization. How do you see those challenges from your perspective, Mr. Israel Roses? Over to you.
Well, thank you very much. I think that's an excellent question, and thank you for the invitation to this session. I think it's really important that we talk about collective action to secure the routing security system. One of the things that I appreciate the most about the internet is that we have this opportunity of living like a unique experience, because at this moment, I'm in Mexico City. You are in Kathmandu, some of you are around the Asia Pacific region, but it doesn't matter because we are in the same room sharing experiences and information and best practices. And that's the way of the internet. That's how the internet works. This notion of community, of ecosystem around the internet is the basis for MANRS, because this is a collective action, community-based initiative. in which all the stakeholders have different roles to play. For example, we have a program for network operators, another one for internet exchange points, another for CDNs and cloud providers, and we just recently launched one for vendor equipments. But the thing is that each actor has a say and a set of actions to apply. For example, policymakers, regulators can lead by example because all the governments, or much of them, have internet resources. They can apply the actions for network operators. And even when not, they can promote and encourage the adoption of best practices, of good practices, to solve a problem, a technical problem that we've been promoting in a community-based approach. We know that the BGP is based on trust, and sometimes we've seen some technical misconfigurations, some even bad actors trying to damage the reputation or playing with the traffic in the internet. But at the end of the day, we know that as a global community, this global community that is enjoying all the benefits of the internet, and we've been discovering that especially during the last months, that we also as a community can promote this kind of best practices and solutions to make a stronger internet and also a more secure routing security system. So governments can adopt the actions if they operate a network, if they have internet resources, but also they can promote these common guidelines. It's not necessary for them to create a policy or to create a legislation to adopt these best practices, because at the end of the day, we are only promoting the adoption of best practices that are already in place among the network operators around the world.
Okay, I can see that. So Mr. Roses has bring in one aspects in a different dimension, but the same thing represented in different dimensions. We're talking about policy adoption, say organizing security managers or security responders, or incident responders, all of them putting a policy and adopting the manners and changing those policies. But what you actually highlighted in your answer is that adopting the best practices. Yeah, we actually, you have presented the next dimension, that adopting the security policies and adopting the manners best practices is actually a best practices itself. That is in the fundamentally in the application, or fundamentally in the core of the operation of an organization. So thank you for that. Actually, that dimension, which is added one actually, and I can see audiences who have also personally sent me the question. Thanks for that. You can feel comfortable both way, whatever is comfort to you. You can directly message me, or you can also put in the chat box publicly as well, whatever is comfortable to you. So in the meantime, Mr. Roses, as we can see that internet society, actually internet is, there's no ownership in the internet society. Actually, it's a community app, level approach, which you also highlighted in the earlier part of your answers. And we've been working in internet society by saying we, that means to say I have an experience of working in internet society, UK and internet society Nepal, in my previous part of my career actually. So internet society has been looking over the internet, not only routing and different parts of policies and kind of things. So suddenly it came up with an approach, say, routing security is challenging now. Now we have to protect, and we have to secure, and not only the endpoints, but the routing incidents have actually made internet society to come up with the approach of manners actually. And some of my colleagues, especially in South Asian part, like say India, Bangladesh, and even in some part of Europe, actually, like in UK or even in France, they say about how this policy can be adopted. Like they have fundamental challenges, like how can they learn about manners, how can they implement that in the policies, and these are the challenging times. So newbies are also interested in manners, but they don't know like how they can start. So what can be a tips for them? Over to you.
That's in fact a really, really good question, because we have a lot of resources for different audiences. First of all, we have all the information in the MANRS website, manners.org. You can find our blog post. We published some analysis of routing incidents, but we have also a lot of resources for technical people. For example, we have an implementation guide for operators that wish to implement the actions in the day-to-day activities. For example, to implement filters in BGP, to implement anti-spoofing measures, to create ROAS, to make global validation, also to better coordinate with other operators. But we have also published some documents that we call MANRS primers. We have a document for policymakers, another one for enterprises, also for CESIRs, and also for C-level executives. In general terms, we are trying to cover different interests, different audiences. We have this amazing group of fellows and ambassadors who are providing trainings, research, who are working with policymakers and with regulators by guiding them in trainings, in technical trainings, but also they are open to collaborate with any community member with any level of knowledge around MANRS. Any person interested in MANRS, in joining, on knowing more, can get in contact, for example, with Ram Krishna, who is our ambassador for the group of policy, or even with any staff member of the Internet Society, because at the end of the day, we know that each person can play an important role in securing the global routing system. We can facilitate an analysis document, we can facilitate a slide deck, or even we can facilitate technical trainings. If you are interested in promoting those kind of activities, feel free to reach out to us. We are here to serve, to collaborate with all the community, because this is a challenge that we need to tackle as a collective challenge.
That's great for the audience and in terms of learning and things. So my other question goes like this to you. So regionally nowadays, if you see the traffic and trends, at recent, I did one conference in fintech, and the sector is also becoming challenging. And when you talk about the different kinds of ransomwares and different kinds of incidences, that are really prevalent, and it's being a hectic to the government, actually, not only the national government, but also the consortium and also the union, like European Union and kind of alliances. So definitely the talk like this in IGF at the regional level is something that is of value to the audiences and different stakeholders who are actually involved in it. So there are APrIGF and different kind of RIR and different kind of IX. So how do you see in the ecosystem that coordination and collaboration can lead to a better way of keeping a trusted ecosystem in the Asia Pacific region? What is your insight for that?
Well, in fact, we've been having a really strong partnership with APrIGF. They are strong partners for us in the region, and they are an example for other regions, of course. We have also good collaboration with other RIRs, but at the end of the day, MANRS is a product of the collaboration. This is a good example of how a common challenge can be taken as a collective effort, because at the end of the day, we are not promoting a new certification or an enforcement law or any hard measure. We are inviting people to adopt already published technical best practices. So this is a product of the collaboration of the internet way of working, not only the internet way of networking, of exchanging data and traffic in the internet, but this internet way of collaborate and trust among the operators, among the actors, even though if they are from the technical community or from the government or from civil society, at the end of the day, this is a multi-stakeholder collaboration. This is a multi-layer collaboration And MANRS is a good example of how, if we collaborate, if we trust each other, we can promote great actions with a global reach, because this is not only for a region or for a country. This is something that has an impact in the global internet. So there's an invitation for you to join, to learn more about MANRS, to reach out to us for ask any kind of information. We are here for you to share our knowledge, our information, and to build the knowledge together, because this is a collective effort.
Okay, cool. So we're talking about the different things in the regional level and how the coordination can be done. And there were some pointers to the government as well, because in the two parts of the communication with the speaker, Mr. Ram and Mr. Israel, we talk about international perspective, then we come to the regional perspective of the discussion, how the MANRS can be implemented in the policy label and how the best practices actually can be adopted. So now let's move to the national level, because we have got our speaker, Mr. Bijay Kumar Roy, who is representing the telecommunication sector in Nepal. And that's a regulatory body. What do you say about the regulatory body? There are different kinds of rumors and different kinds of saying that regulators is like just regulating and so it's under the, it's bringing in an umbrella, actually making them adopt the policies, making them adopt the best practices, do this and that kind of thing, auditing and kind of things. So this is actually some doubts might be there in terms of policy. So at recent, Nepal Telecommunication Authority has come up with an approach of policy. Will raise the question for how they build that policies, how they are adopting and kind of things. In the meantime, before going to that part, I would like to ask Mr. Bijay Kumar Roy, who is the director in Nepal Telecommunication Authority, like how have you seen regulatory perspective in terms of telecommunications? Like what are the challenges? Like what are the regulatory body doing in telecommunications? Can you just highlight that part? Over to you.
Thank you, Subhashji. Thank you to the Internet Governance Forum for inviting me in this session. And thanks for the question. We are facing this COVID, and in this COVID, we have seen a huge increase in the traffic demand. And at the same time, we have also seen some of the activities which are more focused on the cyber threats, attacks. So in this lockdown, those activities seems to be increased. So like the regulator, we all know the importance of this security, and this has already been emphasized by ITU as well. They have already coined CIIP, Critical Information Infrastructure Protection. So those discussions and those studies have already been going on in ITU, and we are quite aware of that. Meanwhile, in this COVID has also dragged us for the activities on the cybersecurity. So this has become a dimension which cannot be left ignored, or we must have we have to pay good attention for the cybersecurity. And from Nepal's perspective, what we found is that there has been little lag, that there has been little gap on the policy side in terms of the cybersecurity. And the cybersecurity is very important to protect the critical information infrastructure, as well as to protect the users' data, to protect the consumers' privacy. So we know the importance of this this domain. But yeah, there was a gap. So the regulator, the policymaker thought that there should be the gap and there should be some driving force, even though the people are, the industry is working voluntarily. There should be some policy, some guideline which guides our industry in the right direction in terms of the security. And then the NTA came up with the policy in consultation with the industry. And this was also important to foster the growth of the digital transactions, because this is needed to build the trust of the people in the ICT services. So I think I answered the queries.
Yeah, you did my first part of the queries, but we have, of course, a list of queries to you actually.
Okay.
Regulatory perspective is something very important these days, and there have been debates at the international level, like in ICANN, IGF, and even also in the regional IGF, like this, that the regulators have got a strong role, not only to make the policies and make them adopt that one, but at the same time encourage them to participate in the policy. So with this background, what I would like to raise a question here, NTA come up with a brilliant approach of cybersecurity bylaw. So how was this policy formed actually? Was that only NTA being involved to make this policy, or were there kind of stakeholder discussion? Was there any stakeholder participation who make the policy? How was this policy formulated? Would you like to answer this question, please?
Thank you, Swazi. Again, giving me an opportunity to elaborate more on how this policy was formulated.
Yeah, I would like to focus a distinctive.
Sorry, there's some background noise. Would you please mute?
Okay. Highlighting the importance. So everyone we understand the importance of this domain. So now there was a need of some policy document which guides our industry for the cybersecurity. So the approach was like we consulted. So it was like to form a policy, and actually this was the NTA is a regulator, and ministry is a policy maker. So a top level policy is formed by the ministry, but the working policy, the bylaws, the regulations, they are formed by NTA, or they are approved by the NTA, and those bylaws, those regulations are enforceable for the operators. So the approach was like we formed a study group where the regulator, the representative from the regulator, the representatives from the telcos, from the ISPs, and from the ministry. So all those representatives was there in a study group, and that study group conducted a study. They carried out a study, and based on that study, there was a recommendation. There was a policy recommendation. So we also consider like the various international standards like SANS and others. Considering those international best practices, international standards, so all those were a part of the study for the study group. That study group, based on the study and discussions with the operators, with the ISPs, so they came up with the document of few pages. It was not a pages of like 100 pages of document, because this was the first policy for the operator, and the study group was very much aware that this was the first time that the policy was formulating, and if we make a document of 100 pages, and if there are a lot of points for the compliance, then for the industry it may they may not accept it, or it will be very challenging part for the recipients. So the study group, they in consultation with the stakeholders, they developed a document. Maybe it's like 3, 4, 5 pages, maybe like 50, 60, like that type of points were there, compliance points were there. So we thought this is a practical, or this is achievable points. So so that was proposed by the study group, and then the NTA board, which is the supreme body for making decision. So the NTA board then accepted that document as a policy, and it was circulated to all the ISPs. And because it was formed in an inclusive way, we found that our industry, they welcome that document, and now at present they are implementing those compliances now. So thank you, Swazi.
Okay, cool. So we just have an insight like how this policy was formed, and then this message can be replicated or broadcasted to the regional channels and the global channels at the same time, because what we observe actually is a matter of an importance is that policy making was done comprehensively and by making the participation of stakeholders. And this is something that the other government bodies in the region of Asia Pacific and also the regional bodies should be noting down, like how the policy formulation is done comprehensively and moreover democratically, and with the standards and practices of internet society as well. So that's pretty much awesome. Now, as you mentioned about different institutes and different organizations, you just mentioned about SANS. What I could see in the policy of the cybersecurity bylaw is there is a MANRS point being noted, and it is highlighted very strongly. So what was the motivation to take the MANRS actually? How it came into the policy? Was that the recommendation? Was that the research? What was that? Why this policy came up with the MANRS approach? Would you like to answer this?
Thank you, Subhas, again, giving me opportunity to highlight on the need of the MANRS for our operators. Actually, this is a part of compliance in the side of this infrastructure and network security. There are also other points like protecting the network from DDoS attacks, and the operators need to analyze the flow, having flow analyzers, and they have to use IPsec or VPN for accessing the network from remote. So besides that, the MANRS is also a very important part in protecting the network. This was highlighted in our discussion. Actually, I was leading that study group. So in that discussion, it was highlighted that the operators should go with the MANRS, because if they don't go with the MANRS, then they will announce routes which will affect the service of the other networks, and yeah, this will help them to identify the bogon routes, to filter the bogon routes, and not to have a bad reputation due to announcing the prefixes of other networks. So this is one of the point that was highlighted in our discussion, that yeah, we should keep MANRS as one of the clause for the infrastructure protection or for the infrastructure security. Thanks, Subhas.
Yeah. This is actually the beauty of APrIGF, that we have got different stakeholders, and we have here distinguished stakeholders from the regulatory perspective, from the international perspective, from internet society, and from the technical perspective, and we can judge that. We can see that a different perspective coming from the third point, a third-party perspective, actually, from the regulator point of view. So we'll definitely move to you in the next part. So next, we were having Ms. Rebecca here, but I think due to some COVID instances and kind of restrictions and things, she got affected or with the family matter. Can Mr. Ramkrishna Pariyar answer that? Is he here, or is there some issues there?
Yeah, yeah, she might be some problem in the family. That's why she cannot attend.
Okay, cool. So before she move, she has actually passed an information to Mr. Ramkrishna Pariyar. Yeah, definitely COVID is affecting all of us, and so we're in the hybrid mode, which could have been in a better hall with a physical room, but the internet is supporting us anyway to do this hybrid kind of things. And Ms. Rebecca, as Mr. Ramkrishna passed back, she has got a point to share, and that was MANRS could be a something and some insightful thing for the policymakers and also youth to adopt their careers forward in the days to come. That was her key message. We'll take that message anyway, and also replicate that, also broadcast that to the audiences who have just joined here and now. So now we'll move to the different round of the session, and this will be about not only about discussing about policies, but also talking about the hurdles and challenges. So in the next round, I'll just go to Mr. Ramkrishna Pariyar again, because I just said him before that I'll just return back with some kind of queries and questions, which we collected actually. Mr. Israel actually talked about the coordination part, which is really effective. That's awesome, like global coordination part, anti-spoofing part, and different kinds of yes done, and kind of checklist kind of things we're going on there. So when we talk about the international perspective, because we're now today in this session and through this virtual discussion, what we are discussing now is all about building a trust and building a trust globally. And globally means there are different stakeholders, like say ICANN. So I can see the policy of ICANN SSR2 as well. I think we were also there, a member there, and we were actually drafting that and kind of things. How has this kind of policies, say, and Nepal Telecommunication Authority is one of the member of International Telecommunication Union, ITU, and it has done its job from its part, what it can. And how this ICANN SSR2 policy being drafted and MANRS thing at the same time is there in internet society, how they are correlated, how are there some points of MANRS that has been actually followed in ICANN SSR2 policy, or they are just like they are separated and isolated? What is the insight there? Would you like to answer this?
Yeah, actually, thank you, Subhash sir, for this highlighting the ICANN SSR2 policy making process as well. Actually, the ICANN SSR2 security, stability, and resiliency for the DNS part and the MANRS is mutually agreed norms for routing security is almost like a similar part, but in the sense like all of this contribution is from the community itself. The community people are the more responsible to eliminate this type of routing incident or to make the internet more hygiene. Yes, definitely that is the correlations, but the DNS and the DNS is also part of the core infrastructures as well, right? The MANRS, the mutually agreed norms for routing security parts, especially for the policy makers, is like the policy makers, like the regulator, like Nepal Telecommunication Authority. I want to highlight some example here. I think Vijay Kumar Roy sir also already mentioned that. I also is a part of the cyber security bylaws, and at that time we also mentioned all the operators should apply the MANRS, right? Due to that part, and apart from that, also in the Asia Pacific region, the APrIGF also doing very good job to the local community. They also did a lot of hands-on training sessions as well. And apart from that, the MANRS community, the MANRS technical team, and the MANRS policy team, and the MANRS resource team also directly communicate with the different stakeholder in the local community, like NP-NOC, like NPIX, Nepal Internet Exchange Point, like ISPN, ISP Association of Nepal. Likewise, the others, different community, Internet Society, and the CAN Federation, likewise NDA, Nepal Telecommunication Authority, right? And with the collaboration of all of these different stakeholders, like the NTA, Nepal Telecommunication Authority, is help us to go ahead. Like they mention MANRS policy in the cybersecurity bylaws. Due to that, I think more than 97% of the operators from Nepal, they have already in the process, they have already did very fantastic job to go ahead with the to adapt the MANRS 4 concrete plan of actions. Hopefully by 2 to 3 months, all these operators will sign, and all these operators will accept the MANRS policy and the MANRS concrete plan of actions. Likewise, in the Asia Pacific regions, others operators or others regulatory body can also replicate some of the best part, so that will be really easy to make an internet more hygiene.
Okay, got that insight, and with that insight, we believe definitely that ICANN SSR2 policy have seen different policies in the region, different policy in the globe, and different policies formed by Internet Society, and we have no doubt that ICANN, IGF, and all of the bodies have coordinated that, and you just put that information that was, I think, helpful to the audiences here who have just joined the session, and they will definitely relay the information in their respective organization, which is something very good to learn from you. And I'll just return to Mr. Israel. So when we talk about policy kind of things, you just listen from Mr. Ram and Mr. Vijay Kumar Roy as well, that they have the different kind of dimension, like you have your own kind of dimension, and that is the beauty that policy actually makes and actually aligns all of them together and come up with a standard, accurate process of policies, which will be adopted in the country, which will be adopted in the globe, which will be adopted in the organization. But the policy making process is never a complete process, because we have innovation going on, technologies being implemented day by day. Likewise, the threats are increasing. If you see the threat maps of different agencies and different organizations, we can see day by day the threats has increased. The new kind of motivation for the attackers are there in the internet ecosystem that brings with a different kind of techniques and attacks. And this has to be actually gauged, and this has to be actually measured, like to what extent this kind of attacks are being developed. And at the same time, the technologies is emerging, like we have IoT at present, we have artificial intelligence at present. At the same time, we have also difficulties in SCADA system, the security challenges and kind of things. So how this kind of update is done in the MANRS in days to come? Is there any kind of policies, or is there any kind of standard operating procedure, or is there any kind of guidelines that would actually let the MANRS team go to these kind of attacks, these kinds of new threats coming on, and operating the MANRS policy in the meantime, because the policy is never complete. How would you see this thing? Mr. Rizal, over to you.
Thank you very much. In fact, we have an observatory that is located at observatory.manrs.org, in which we can see the routing incidents. We have a public view. You can see it live if you want just now, but also all the MANRS participants have an exclusive view of the routing incidents in their networks as a way to monitor the incidents in their networks, if any. At the same time, all the MANRS participants can be part of a community, of course, but they can take part of a steering committee. Currently, we have an advisory group that is going to turn into a steering committee that is going to be the governing body of MANRS, the community-based group that will decide all the policies around MANRS, if changes may be needed for the actions or new programs to be published or created, or new approaches, because this is a community-based effort. We are facilitating it as an organization, as the Internet Society, but it is important to note that all the government decisions are going to be issued by the steering committee. In fact, the applications are now open. If you are a MANRS participant, you can take part of the process. If not, you can see all the details in manrs.org. And thank you very much for the invitation, for this collaboration, and for showing how the multi-stakeholder approach can also serve to make a more secure internet.
Yeah, cool. So we are now near about to wrap up the session as well, because I have to also end up with the summary and what we did and kind of things. And there's a quick question to regulatory perspective, because I have promised to return to him. So we have got today a very beautiful panel along with you, distinguished speakers, and also distinguished participants from different organizations. And this is the beauty of APrIGF as well, that has united all of us together in this virtual room. We have got this different kind of expertise. So would there be something in the priority list of the regulatory body like NTA to invite them in the future and take them and discuss about the policies and formulate them? What is the perspective of NTA in that? Mr. Brijesh, can you just answer that? Like, how will you take this talents in the basket of NTA, like talents like Mr. Roses, Mr. Ramkrishnan, and different ones?
Thank you, Subhas. Thank you again. We have a bylaw as a policy document for our operators. That is one part. But the other part is like Ramkrishna has said, we have achieved certain progress on the implementation of the MANRS. But still, what I find is still the regulator has to encourage and the regulator has to help the operators to implement this MANRS so that we can achieve 100% target and this 100% secure in terms of this IP routing. So we have thought of, we have had this type of thought, and very soon, actually, I was planning to take help from Ramkrishna to help our ISPs to implement this MANRS. Thanks, Subhas.
Okay, thanks. That's a perfect timing, which I was expecting, because I was actually planning to wrap up in a minute or two. So I have a clock going on there, hand by hand. So now we come with the distinguished approach. Like we had got the international perspective, and we have got the regional perspective, we have got the national perspective, and with this session, our audience, I definitely believe that they have got an insight what MANRS is saying, how that can be adopted in the policy, how that policy making procedure can be comprehensive, and the best practices and the kind of things. And we believe definitely they will relay this information to their colleagues and in the organization, the colleagues who are the co-workers, and their colleagues who are the students and teachers as well, because I can see a lot of professors and students being joining here in the session. Now suddenly there has been time to wrap up the session now. I've listed some of the points after the session. So first one is avoiding the regulatory barriers, help improve market incentives for better routing security, which MANRS is doing. Encourage the good practices, as MANRS has got a lot of practices actually. The best practices like say spoofing and global coordination and this different kind of aspects there. Then after promoting the common guidelines by replicating that into the policies like NTA have done, and granting an incentives will be another thing, which is one of the part which I highlighted, which I take from the Mr. Israel part of his answer. So eliminating the legal barriers, because we're not in the zone now, we're in the open ecosystem of internet, because internet is not being controlled by anyone, but in fact it is a global coordination part. That was the main aspect of MANRS, and this is something very important. And last but not the least is the thing that we have to continue by doing and leading by an example. An example like APrIGF and discussion like this will be an important part. So with this, we have concluded the session for today. We'll definitely meet in another session. Thank you, Mr. Kelvin. Thank you, Mr. Ramkrishna, Mr. Israel, Mr. Bijay, Mr. Rebecca, and all the audiences here in this panel. Thank you. Over to you, Kelvin.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone. Take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much for the APrIGF for giving this opportunity as well.
Thank you to all our speakers and audience.
Recording stopped.